I wanted to highlight this before we get into we speak to our two guests. I normally would have obviously led with the story about what's happening in Jenin, the latest escalation of settler colonialism, but we will be speaking with our guest at length about that. This is actually a fun story from over the weekend. Governor Tony Evers of Wisconsin has done something that some people who are cooler than me would call based. Other groups are a little more critical of it, like they wanted him to veto the entire budget. I totally understand that. However, I am going to put a positive spin on this and cast aside my typical cynicism to praise Governor Evers for actually wielding power, which is something that the Democrats have no idea how to do in general, or they choose not to. I mean, it's just by the nature of like the way our politics are, the nature of the fact that we've legalized campaign contributions in the way that we have. We have an emboldened, strong, well-funded right and a weak, ineffective Democratic Party to combat it. However,
the art of the possible, I think, is what they used to call it. Remember hearing that before?
I
I'm
do.
trying to look up who. Oh, Otto von Bismarck. So the namesake of my hometown.
Gotcha. Well, I mean, like this though is, I'm sure Tony Evers lived through many years of like seeing in Wisconsin politics, I know he did, of the Republican Party playing this game of wielding power and circumventing democracy in their case for years and years. And he says, well, two can play at this. So this is incredible. This is out of the Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel. Governor Tony Evers, a former public school educator, used his broad partial veto authority this week to sign into law a new state budget that increases funding for public schools for the next 4 centuries. And the way he did it is really the funniest part. The surprise move will ensure districts' state-imposed limits on how much revenue they are allowed to raise will be increased by $325 per student until the year 2425, creating a permanent annual stream of new revenue for public schools and potentially curbing a key debate between Republicans and Democrats during each state budget writing cycle. Evers told reporters at a press conference in the Wisconsin State Capitol on Wednesday. I've been to that Capitol building. It's very pretty. His action would provide school districts with predictable long-term increases for the foreseeable future. Evers crafted the 4-century school aid extension by striking a hyphen and a 20 from the reference to the 2024-25 school year. So can you scroll down, Bradley, to that part where the reporters here, there's like a red font, you'll see it. Here we go. They show what he did essentially here, which was, it's like the equivalent of correcting a student's paper. And I know Evers comes from a teacher background, so this is part of it. So you can see here, if you're watching on YouTube, that the red parts are what he crossed out and vetoed. So it's section 402. It says, of the statutes is created to read, for the limit, this is the original part, for the limit for the 2023-24 school year and the 2024-25 school year, add $325 to the result under par, so $325 per student. But he crossed out 24 school year and the 20. So it read as for 2023 to 24-25, and he got rid of the hyphen. So instead of 2024 to 25, it reads as 24-25, the year that the increase will continue to, which is, I mean, look, I love when Democrats choose to wield their power, and I especially love it even more when they do it in a way that's humorous.
Yeah. Now I have to rate on the parade.
Oh, Matt.
So this is him making up for a huge political failure coming from the guy who ran against charter schools in the election. There's in these Times piece from 2 weeks ago, but basically like $325 per pupil, locking that in for 3 centuries. I like that, but the budget he signed that is covered in this article. I'll just name it here. Tony Evers just signed off on the largest voucher school expansion in 30 years, increased for voucher schools $1,000 to $3,000. So $325 per pupil for public schools, that's nice, but you're still massively expanding vouchers. So what I would prefer to have seen is some way to cross out and make that 325. I don't know if you could have done it, but 3,250.
Yeah, right.
But so like, I appreciate him doing this, but it is trying to get back. It's a half step forward where there was a full step backwards, I think.
You're right. You're absolutely right. And I'm perhaps a bit dazzled by the flair of it all.
It is a funny thing to do.
Yeah. And I just find it to be instructive, hopefully, for other Democrats in the country that, you can do things that are good for people. I mean, what did we just see in Minnesota? Another thing where you look a little deeper, and obviously like the vetoing of the rideshare wage increases essentially was
there's a lot of good
atrocious.
Stuff there too. Yeah.
But what he did with child school lunches and choosing to make that a political stunt in the positive way. I'm blanking on the governor's name of Minnesota.
Tim Walz.
Tim Walz. Yeah. And he had this huge press conference with a bunch of children cheering as he signed free school lunches.
And the Republicans are like, this is actually bad.
Yeah. And you're like, oof, I don't know about that, buddy. And then here with Evers, who has a background as a teacher, doing this, making it a stunt. This is going to go far and wide, and people are going to be like, yeah, but we should have more funding for our schools, for our public schools. This is cool and something I'm in favor of. So the finer details, obviously, they paint a bit of a different picture. But like the Republican Party in Wisconsin has been as bullish, as anti-democratic, as uninterested in compromise as any faction in the country. And I think that you should wield power in a way that corresponds with the urgency that is necessary for so many millions of families in this country. So, but their purposes are for corporate greed and for tax cuts for the wealthy, which was another part of what Evers vetoed here were tax cuts for the richest people in Wisconsin. But, and then also I believe he removed a measure that had to do with prohibiting Medicaid payments for gender affirming care for trans people, which is also good. But, the point is that the Republican Party in Wisconsin is about to get a taste of their own medicine, and I can't wait. A lot of people are asking if this kind of machination can be overturned by the court system. Hey, lucky for us, the Wisconsin Supreme Court is flipping to liberal after that consequential election from a few months ago. Janet, I can never say her last name, won that seat.
Protasiewicz.
Oh, thank you, Bradley, as always. Janet Protasiewicz won that seat, and so it will be a liberal Supreme Court in Wisconsin. So sucks to suck. And even if it doesn't stand, which wouldn't make sense because Tommy Thompson, the Republican governor, holds the record for partial vetoes. He did over 450 in the 90s. So in theory, there's certainly precedent for this, but either way, the court's flipping to liberal. Sorry, Republicans. Evers just flexed on ya. I mean, I know it's partially Matt might, roll his eyes, but I'm at least happy about that one element. Fun for the whole family.